So, Dragon's Dogma 2 has recently resurfaced in discussions. A big update shadow dropped of a similar size to that of the Elden Ring DLC. Now, seemingly this patch hasn't actually gone live in-game yet, leaving many players, myself included, very hopeful that this could be the game-saving expansion we're all hoping for. My name's Zenny, and today I want to talk a bit more about why this game didn't quite find its feet, and what I would like to see from an expansion. And there is very good reason to believe why it would be real. Despite the varying different levels of feedback on this game, it has sold very well in the past few years. Over 4 million game sales. A straight up success for Capcom as a release, and considering how much negative PR there kind of was online surrounding the game, the fact that it still managed to climb to this level of sales is very impressive. And the reason that's very important is, depending on how it was done, releasing an expansion for an existing game is going to be a much easier task for Capcom rather than creating a Dragon's Dogma 3. Furthermore, argument could be made that players would be less likely to buy a Dragon's Dogma 3, knowing the second entry to the series never quite ended up meeting expectations. Now, I'm personally a giant fan of DD2. I enjoyed it at launch when it came out, and I've since replayed it now that performance has been improved significantly. But that doesn't mean I think the game is flawless. In fact, I think the strongest elements of DD2 highlight its shortcomings in a lot of different ways. So what would I like to see from the expansion, and how would I like to see the current version of the game improved? Well, let's start with what I believe to be the strongest part of this game, which is the combat. Hands down, if you enjoy the mechanical feeling of how combat plays out within the game, that feeling alone is going to carry you through a whole playthrough. As I mentioned, there's a lot of issues with this game in other areas, a lot of which can be extremely off-putting to players. But interspersed and interlaced between these issues are very, very strong features, combat being one of them. Across the multiple different vocations or classes within the game, you as a player have the ability to craft and tailor a playstyle depending on the role you picked. Each class can play very different depending on how you want to approach it. Do you want to be a tanky man with a sword and shield? Or do you want to be a man with a sword and shield who also jumps around, does backflips and throws things off cliffs? The player is given complete agency as to how they want to approach each fight, and that is only bolstered by the fact that your companions that you take with you can do the same. You have your personal pawn who you can completely customize and set up to synergize with the way you want to play, and along your way you can find an additional 2 companions that were created by other players across the world, allowing you to search for the 3rd and 4th party slots that you think are going to work best in your team. You are able to make a character that you individually enjoy playing, and goddamn does it feel good when you do. Now, the main issue with combat in this game is that for the most part you're going to be fighting the same few mobs over and over again. Enemy diversity is one of my biggest problems with this game, because as you travel from point A to point B you're going to be running into a lot of different fights, but the issue being is you're going to be fighting the same couple things over and over again. After a while it does get quite repetitive doing this. Now luckily the combat does kind of carry the player through this feeling of repetition, because while you're encountering the same matchups over and over, the creativity you're allowed to inject into the game during these fights does help keep things interesting to an extent. It's just that in time, and especially across multiple playthroughs, it does get tiring. So how would I improve this already great feature? 1. We need more enemies straight up. Increase the amount of diversity of encounters in the existing part of the maps as well as any potential new area. Elaborate on the existing classes and vocations by giving us new skills, but also be creative and add more into the game. No one's going to complain at that. And finally, give us some unique weapons and armor sets, because currently it's a case of you go to the blacksmith, you buy the most expensive thing because it probably has the best stats, and that's what you use. Potentially we could be given equipment that has unique effects on them, and potentially buff these different skills that offer different playstyles. It would give players another reason to explore and experiment with an already great system. Now, we already kind of touched on this a bit, but let's go into exploration, because this is what you spend most of your time in DD2 doing. The gameplay loop of this game does derive from moving from point A to point B. The fun occurs from what you get yourself into during that process. As we all know, it's incentivized that the player genuinely travels to where they're trying to go, opposed to fast travelling, and that's why, especially early on into the game, you're kind of limited in your ability to fast travel. You can take wagons to main towns with a chance to be ambushed along the way, so even in this instance, the game wants you to experience the world. I'm not going to act like there isn't cool things to go find and explore in the current map, but I think most of us would agree it's a lot of the same old, and even if you do find a interesting cave here and there, quite often there's a few mobs in it, maybe a chest or two, and when you walk away you don't have too much to show for the fact that you did go explore. That paired with the issue we just went over with the mob diversity quite often results in the fact that exploring means you're just going to go fight more of the same old, with very little reward waiting for you at the end. So while exploration is incentivized from the perspective of all the different situations you get yourself into, the lack of reward out in the world also decentivizes the player from wasting their time. It can be a quite polarizing factor, and I think this is why a lot of people feel so weird about the game. How do you fix this issue? I believe giving the players a brand new area of the map or a new region entirely would be a very great thing, especially if it was worked with these issues in mind. But I don't think we can just ignore the current state of the map. Place around a few unique locations to the current map that don't already exist, rework current cave systems and other nooks and crannies to add unique encounters or special loot to find at the end. I'll touch on this in a second, but more quests out in the world, because currently you really only find them in major cities. And as already discussed, the mob diversity in general would make things more interesting even if the map doesn't change all that much. And the final major topic I want to touch on is questing. Currently, the way quests function in DD2 is very bad, if I'm to be completely honest. Quite often I find myself feeling that quests were almost an afterthought to try and vaguely guide the player in their travels, but ultimately it kind of results in a back and forth thing that is largely uninteresting, and the story is kept vague enough to the point in which you only care about the main focus. All of the other context and what could be interesting factors to the story you kind of ignore because they're irrelevant other than the main objective. For a game built so much with immersion in mind, a lack of creative agency when it comes to quests, how you approach them, dialogue options, to be honest, was a letdown and still is to this day. Unfortunately, I think this is one of those things that is so baked into the game from a fundamental point of view that I don't know you can really fix this. If the DLC does aim to be much grander in scope and has a main questline of its own, I would like to see this dramatically improved. Luckily, as already discussed, I do feel very strongly that the other aspects of the game, i.e. combat and exploration, are so strong that it can carry the lack of interesting quests and dialogue. I don't feel great saying that, because ultimately, like you, I would like to see all areas improved, but I can live without a strong quest system if they get everything else right. Although the DLC could almost entirely ignore everything discussed in this video, and instead they may just give us a combat oriented location. It could simply be a roguelike boss rush kind of situation where we go to a brand new island or area, you hop into an arena, and the game says, you know what, our strongest area is combat, so let's give the player combat. You hop in the arena, a boss spawns, you fight it, you get some equipment or loot to go fight the next boss. And in all honesty, that doesn't even sound too bad. Again, at this point, I'll take any additional content for the game. It would, however, be a great shame to not bring the current DD2 to the place it deserves to be. To this day, I will stand and die on this hill that Dragon's Dogma 2 is so close to being a generational game. And it feels like somewhere during mid-development, the philosophy of what the game wanted to be maybe changed. Maybe they didn't have time to finish it, I'm not quite sure. It's very possible DD2 is exactly what it was intended to be, and overall, it kind of didn't work out. But once again, 4 million copies of this game have been sold, so despite the mixed levels of feedback, a lot of us, myself included, have already enjoyed what we have. And that is why I'm extremely hopeful if there is a DLC coming, it's going to be fun no matter what. Let me know in the comment section what you think this could be, or do you think the DLC is real in the first place? Thanks for watching.